My cold and distant academic prodigy childhood friend fell in love with a delinquent. She said he was different from everyone else, that he was vibrant and full of life, like a ray of light illuminating her monotonous life. She skipped classes to go on dates with him. She fought and raced cars for him. She even abandoned me without hesitation in the middle of a raging fire for him. My 10 years of unrequited love were completely consumed in that blaze. Later, I went abroad and never saw her again. I never expected that 10 years later, I would meet her again during a business meeting. I thought she would have already married that boyfriend of hers and lived happily ever after. But unexpectedly, she stared straight at me, tears streaming down her face. Do you know how long I've been looking for you? Chapter 1. I saw Grace again at a business banquet. She was deep in thought, her head bowed, revealing a swan-like, snow-white neck under her raven-black hair. Even though she was surrounded by a bustling crowd, she seemed to have created an invisible barrier that kept everyone at a distance. She stood out immediately. After 10 years, she seemed even colder than before, her gaze as icy as the snow on a frozen tundra. Perhaps it was only when she looked at Justin that the snow would melt into a gentle spring thaw. She didn't notice me, just lowered her gaze with a hint of impatience in her eyes. Noticing me staring at her, a friend beside me whispered, "That's the eldest daughter of the Liu family. She just took over the family business after returning from abroad. I heard she graduated from Oxford, a top student. She impressed the board of directors as soon as she came back. Not just some brainless rich girl, she's quite something." Ah. He winked at me with a suggestive smile. "She's the perfect, rich and beautiful, female lead. They say the line of people pursuing her stretches from Northby Street to Main Avenue. Want to go introduce yourself?" I didn't respond, but my mind couldn't help but wander to memories of Grace from the past. 17-year-old Grace had skin so fair that it seemed almost translucent under the sunlight. Her eyes, when she looked at me seriously, held a faint smile, and her voice was like ice melting in a spring stream. "Benjamin, let's both get into Peking University." Okay. That was such a distant memory. Even though I hadn't thought about it for a long time, it was now as clear as if it had happened yesterday. I placed my wine glass back on the waiter's tray and said softly, "No need, let's go." Just then, Grace's gaze swept in my direction and suddenly stopped on me. She froze. Then, she abruptly pushed through the crowd and walked quickly towards me, finally breaking into a run, her high heels clacking urgently on the floor. "Benjamin," she called out loudly, her voice trembling with disbelief. I wasn't sure if I was mistaken, but her eyes seemed a little red. I pretended not to see, and turned to leave. Chapter 2. The story of Grace and me isn't particularly special. Our families have been close since we were kids, and we were even born at the same hospital, just hours apart. We were the textbook definition of childhood sweethearts. Grace was someone who had been proud and aloof from birth, seeing everyone around her as nothing more than unrecyclable trash. Even in elementary school, the number of love letters she received could fill half a drawer. She never read a single one, just tore them up in front of the boys' faces and threw the pieces into the trash without any expression. She had every reason to be proud, coming from a privileged background, possessing delicate features, and with a sharp intellect. By the age of 3, she was already flipping through the Oxford Dictionary. At 11, she hacked into her father's company firewall, accessed confidential files, and left her father both furious and reluctantly proud. But she was always a bit more restrained in front of me. Grace never skipped a grade, claiming that if she didn't stick with me, I'd be a hopeless case. So, from childhood through high school, I would either go to her house after school, or she would come to mine, where we'd study together while playing. She'd often tap my head with a pen in frustration, saying, "Benjamin, how many times do I have to explain this simple problem before you get it? Are you an idiot?" Under the daily tutoring sessions of a genius like Grace, even an idiot would eventually wise up. Growing up, we were always the top 2 in class, her in first place, me in second. In life, we were inseparable. Her mother would often joke that we were so close we might as well share a pair of pants. She'd even tease my mom about arranging a marriage between us. Every time she said that, I would blush and stay silent, but inside, I was overjoyed. Who wouldn't like Grace? So beautiful, so exceptional, and so openly biased in favor of me. If the story ended here, it would have been a happy ending for childhood sweethearts. Unfortunately, it wasn't long before Justin appeared. Chapter 3. Justin was different from any other guy I had ever met. To put it nicely, he was unconventional. To put it bluntly, he was a delinquent. He transferred to our school during our second year of high school, reportedly expelled from his previous school due to some incident. He never paid attention in class and often skipped school to hang out, while other boys obediently wore their school uniforms. He wore a tight black tank top, revealing the faint outlines of his abs and a tattoo, which made the girls secretly glance at him. He liked dating, and almost every attractive girl in the school had been in a relationship with him at some point. He didn't care about the gossip and even turned those stories into topics of conversation. He hung out with delinquents from outside the school, often kissing girls with dyed, messy hair in public. After school, he would straddle his motorcycle, chew gum, and rev the engine, while the girl clinging to him screamed with delight as they sped off. In a place where everyone seemed like they came out of the same mold, he was a unique firework that attracted many people's attention, including Grace. In theory, someone like Justin shouldn't have had any connection with Grace. He was a troublemaker who barely passed his classes, with parents who were gambling addicts and didn't care about him. The teachers ignored him as well. Grace, on the other hand, was a top student who consistently ranked first in the class. She came from a wealthy family, was disciplined, and was the pride of both teachers and parents. But somehow, their paths crossed. The first time Grace received a love letter from Justin, she threw it directly into the trash. Then Justin personally delivered the second letter. He cornered Grace against the wall, smirking as he pinned her hands above her head and blew a puff of white smoke into her ear. "Grace, I've got my eye on you. Be my girlfriend." Many boys liked Grace, but none dared to pursue her this boldly. I thought Grace would reject him mercilessly, just like she did with everyone else. But for the first time, she looked a bit flustered, the tips of her ears turning red. Grace and Justin started dating. In her words, Justin was different from everyone else. He was vibrant, like a ray of light illuminating her monotonous life. When I waited for Grace at the school gate, I would often see Justin with his arm around her as they walked out together. He would smile mischievously at Grace. "Your little childhood sweetheart is waiting for you. Do you want to do your homework with him?" His friends would burst into laughter. "Yeah, Grace, go home and study. Benjamin is waiting for you." I felt uncomfortable and frowned at Grace, but she just gave me a cold glance, then hooked her arm around Justin's and walked away. She didn't say a single word to me. Justin looked back, giving me a smile that was both mocking and pitiful. I stood at the school gate for a long time before finally lowering my head and leaving alone. Justin didn't like me, and he didn't want Grace to be with me. So, Grace stopped seeking me out, and when I tried to find her, she would coldly turn me away. She no longer went to the library with me to study, nor did she help me with my homework. She started skipping classes to go on dates with Justin. She fought with girls from other schools for him. She even secretly took her family's car to go street racing with him. That year, for the first time in my life, I surpassed Grace and became the top student in our grade, and her grades plummeted. Grace's parents were furious, and the teachers repeatedly tried to talk sense into her, but she was infatuated with Justin as if under a spell. In the end, Grace's mother asked me to go talk to her. I didn't want to go. I knew Grace wouldn't listen to me, but I still went. For the girl who used to tap my head in frustration, calling me an idiot, and who said she wanted to go to Peking University with me. She was wearing a miniskirt and fishnet stockings. Her hair dyed yellow, with skull rings on her fingers. She was smoking with Justin in an alleyway. Then they exchanged a kiss behind a cloud of white smoke. She was almost unrecognizable from the meticulous girl I once knew. I walked over and pulled her away. Grace, pulled aside by me, looked impatient. "Are you here to lecture me like everyone else?" I clenched my fists, trying to reason with her. "Grace, didn't you say you wanted to go to Peking University with me?" I paused, suppressing the dull ache in my chest, and almost pleaded. "I know you like Justin, and I won't stop you from liking him, but could you at least wait until after the college entrance exams?" Grace just sneered, and then Justin came over, wrapping his arm around Grace's neck and planting a kiss on the corner of her mouth. He turned to me, his gaze malicious and taunting. "Benjamin, Grace is my girlfriend. What business does she have going to Peking University with you? Who the hell do you think you are?" I turned pale and looked at Grace, but she just avoided my gaze. "How about this? Let her choose for herself. That way, you can stop obsessing over someone else's girl." Justin blew out a puff of smoke and nudged Grace with his elbow. "You choose, him or me." To this day, I still remember that brief yet agonizing evening. The sunset was a fiery, intense crimson as I stood there, waiting for Grace's judgment. After a moment, she lifted the corners of her mouth into a mocking smile. Then, right in front of me, she kissed Justin deeply. When they finished, she looked into his eyes and said, "Isn't it obvious?" Chapter 4. Back to the present. I walked quickly, heading straight for the car as soon as I exited the building. Behind me, Grace stood at the entrance, her face as pale as paper, anxiously looking around but unable to find any trace of me. The streetlights cast her shadow long and thin, giving her an unexpected and fragile appearance, as if she might break at the slightest touch. I leaned back in the driver's seat and lit a cigarette. The scent of menthol filled the enclosed car, and I closed my eyes slightly. I never used to smoke. This habit developed after I went abroad. Tobacco doesn't bring much joy, but it does allow you to momentarily forget your troubles. The reason I left the country was that I almost got burned alive in a fire. That afternoon when I went looking for Grace, some of the thugs who had previously fought with Justin came seeking revenge. I heard it was because Justin had dated one of their sisters, who had even had a miscarriage for him. Later, she continued to cling to Justin, But Grace slapped her across the face. The thug couldn't swallow his pride, so he brought in some big shots from the streets. That afternoon, the three of us were tied up and thrown into a van. Justin got the worst of it. He was beaten so badly that he was covered in blood. Then we were dumped in an abandoned warehouse, waiting for the so-called boss to deal with us. Teenagers can take a beating, despite looking bad. The injuries were mostly superficial. Justin soon woke up and managed to rub the ropes tying his hands until they snapped. There were 2 doors in the warehouse. Grace had always liked taking things apart, and she had once dismantled the lock on the front door of her house. Using a piece of wire, she managed to unlock the door just as the 3 of us were about to make a run for it. The thugs, hearing the noise, kicked the door open. Instinctively, I looked at Grace, and in a split second, her gaze fell on Justin. She grabbed his hand and ran. My hand froze in midair, and my blood turned cold in an instant. As Justin left, he didn't forget to slam the door shut in front of me. I lost the crucial second needed to escape. I hadn't revisited what happened after that for a long time. The thug recognized me and knew that Grace and I were childhood sweethearts. When Grace and Justin ran, the thugs took out all their anger on me. They broke one of my legs with a stick, and I lost count of how many blows I took. By the end, I was barely hanging on to life. Finally, the thugs set the warehouse on fire. The flames were intense, burning hot, making my eyes dry, so dry that I couldn't even shed a tear, but all I felt was cold. A bone-chilling cold. Chapter 5. That fire burned away my 10 years of unrequited love. But in the end, I didn't die. A kind passerby saw the fire and called the emergency services, and it was sheer luck that the fire station was nearby that day, so they arrived quickly. When I was rescued, my parents were devastated. I lay in the hospital for a full 2 weeks, and when I finally woke up, I said only one thing to my parents: I don't want to stay here anymore. Because of that incident, my leg could no longer endure intense physical activity. I used to love playing basketball, running long distances, and skiing, but after that, none of it was possible. Our family completely severed ties with the Liu family. Grace's parents brought her over several times, but my parents drove them away each time. After that, to escape this place full of painful memories, my parents decided to immigrate and move the entire family abroad. I changed my contact information and cut all ties with the past. For the next 10 years, I never saw Grace again. I was 17 that year. My youth ended abruptly in such a tragic and absurd way. Chapter 6. At 27, I returned to China to take over the family business. I never expected to see Grace again. The moment I saw her, the pain I had buried for 10 years suddenly resurfaced, making me instinctively avoid her. Grace, the name that had brought so much light into the first 17 years of my life, the name that, at 17, had pushed me into hell. To be fair, what happened that day wasn't entirely Grace's fault. She chose Justin, and there was nothing wrong with her not choosing me. Now, I don't hate her as much as I used to, but I also don't want to see her again. It seems that the more you want to avoid someone, the more likely you are to run into them. I didn't expect to see Grace again so soon. In the negotiation meeting room, Grace still had her hand on the door, frozen in place. She stared at me, her whole body rigid as if she had turned to stone. After a long moment, her lips began to tremble, and I wasn't sure if I was imagining it, but I thought I saw her eyes start to fill with blood. A wave of mixed emotions surged through me, and I could hardly control myself. Laura glanced at me. "What's wrong?" Her words pulled me out of my tangled emotions, and I steadied my voice. "Nothing." Throughout the negotiation, both Grace and I were distracted. I was on edge, and as soon as the meeting ended, I tried to leave, but Grace grabbed my arm. Her eyes were bloodshot, and in a hoarse voice, she said, "Benjamin, that day, it was you, wasn't it? I've been looking for you for years." At that moment, memories flooded back uncontrollably. The unbearable pain, the scorching heat of the flames, the leg that could never endure intense activity again. I jerked my hand away. "Ms. Liu, please have some respect," she pleaded desperately. "Benjamin, I know I wronged you back then. All these years, I've thought about that day every day." Just as I was about to lose control and walk away, Laura suddenly stepped in front of me. She was tall, standing at 5'9", half an inch taller than Grace. When she stood in front of me, she completely blocked Grace's line of sight. "Ms. Liu." Her tone was nonchalant, but her emotions were icy. "Business is business. Why are you making a scene with our CEO in front of everyone? You might not care about rumors, but our company's reputation does." Grace was taken aback, then frowned. "This is between Benjamin and me. We're old acquaintances. Please step aside." Laura glanced at me, and I frowned, feeling nothing but irritation. She turned back to Grace with a smirk. "Sorry, Ms. Liu. Unfortunately, we have another meeting coming up. If you have something to say, save it for next time." With that, she grabbed my hand without giving Grace a chance to respond and led me out the door. "Ex-girlfriend." Once we were in the car, I sat in silence, lost in thought. Laura looked at me a few times, and finally couldn't help but ask. I shook my head and whispered, "No." "Then she wronged you in the past." I remained silent. Laura cursed under her breath. "That woman doesn't look like anything good." Her eyes practically on top of her head, pretending to be all cold and aloof. "Why didn't you say anything back there?" Her meddling broke up my sullen mood, and I couldn't help but laugh. What good would it have done? "Are you going to beat her up for me?" "Of course," Laura fumed. "How did she wrong you? Tell me." I said nothing. After a moment, Laura handed me a bottle of water. "Next time you see her, I'll deal with her for you." Seeing her expression, full of regret for not having punched Grace earlier, I couldn't help but smile. Those dark emotions slowly faded away. Laura and Grace are two completely different people. Grace was always the unattainable flower on the hilltop. After returning to China, I heard bits and pieces about her life. I thought she liked Justin so much that they would stay together forever. I never expected that after I was rescued, they would break up. I heard it was an unpleasant split, with Grace even slapping Justin in public before they went their separate ways. She apparently found her way back, regaining the top spot in our grade in just one semester. When the college entrance exams came around, she was the top student in the province and went to Peking University. After graduation, she went to the UK for further studies and has only recently returned to take over her family's business. She's the epitome of a golden child, driving a Maybach and wearing high-end custom-made suits. Even when sitting among others, it feels like she's in a world of her own. Laura, on the other hand, is different. Her family is also wealthy, but she has none of that spoiled rich kid attitude. When we work late, she'll set up a camping bed in the office with the rest of us, waking up in the morning with her hair a mess. She usually wears t-shirts that cost about $100, blending in with everyone, with none of that rich girl burden. It's easy to be around her. Like she said, "It seems I really don't feel that bad anymore." Chapter 7. After seeing Grace again, I started having trouble sleeping frequently, and when I did manage to fall asleep, my dreams were filled with nightmares. In those dreams, it was always the burning fire, a scene of charred red. Through the suffocating black smoke, Grace held Justin's hand, coldly watching me as she pushed me into an abyss, and then I would wake up, drenched in sweat. I took a day off, not wanting to stay at home, and with no idea where to go. I wandered aimlessly. When I finally came to my senses, I realized I had wandered to the entrance of my old high school. I stood there for a long time when suddenly someone approached me from behind. It was Grace. I hadn't taken a close look at her last time, but now that I did, I noticed that 10 years had changed her quite a bit. She was taller. Her figure was no longer as slender as it had been in her youth, now more curvaceous. The delicate makeup on her face made her look very mature, but standing there in a fitted black trench coat, I could almost still see the 17-year-old Grace. Except the girl who used to scold me for being stupid while tirelessly helping me with my studies had become a blur. What remained was the memory of her abandoning me. Instinctively, I frowned, took a step back, and was about to leave, but Grace called out to me. After a long silence, she spoke in a dry voice. "Benjamin, I've always owed you an apology. All these years, I've been looking for you. I keep having dreams about that day, and I regret every moment of leaving you behind." I forced a cold smile. What good is saying all this now? The damage was done, and an apology couldn't undo it. Grace gave a bitter smile. "I know. Saying sorry won't change anything. I just want to make it up to you. Can't you give me a chance?" "No need," I replied, expressionless. "Grace, I don't want to see you again. Let's just be strangers." "Strangers?" She repeated the word, her tone filled with bitter pain. She took a step forward, her expression growing agitated. "Benjamin, I know you resent me. You hate me. If you want to hit me or yell at me, I won't say a word, but we were together for so long, and now you want us to be strangers." I was just confused at the time. Her voice trembled as she continued, "But I really regret it now." I looked down, clenching my fists as a storm of emotions brewed inside me, threatening to overtake my mind. It took every ounce of strength I had not to lash out at her. "Grace, could you stop being so shameless? You say you regret it, and I'm supposed to forgive you. Do you have any idea?" I bit down hard on my words, tasting blood. "Do you have any idea what I went through back then? And you still dare stand in front of me?" Grace's brow furrowed with pain, and she fell silent. Honestly, have I hated Grace all these years? Of course I have, but not as much as you might think. She liked Justin, and it was natural for her to choose him over me. But what did I do wrong? Who could I blame? Over the years, I've come to terms with it. Maybe it was just my fate to go through such a catastrophe. I never expected an apology from her. All I wanted was to never see her again. Grace called out to me from behind, her voice trembling with fear. "Benjamin, you liked me back then, didn't you? I wanted to tell you, I liked you too. I was just too stupid to realize it back then. I didn't stop walking, confessing her feelings now. How absurd. I had liked Grace for many years. Very much. So much. And I had waited for her for many years. But the fragile love of a young person crumbled like paper in the face of such a disaster, consumed in an instant by the flames. Now, all I feel for her is overwhelming disgust. Disgust so strong that I don't want to see her ever again. Back then, she didn't choose me, and in the future, I don't need to be chosen by her. As I reached the street corner, I suddenly stopped in my tracks. A man in a faded jacket, surprised, took off his sunglasses. Benjamin. He smiled. Do you remember me? I'm Justin. Chapter 8. At a business banquet I attended with Laura, I heard a familiar voice while walking down the hallway to the restroom. Peeking around the corner, I saw Justin, dressed in a suit, holding Grace from behind. All these years, I've never forgotten you. I've always thought about you, Grace. It was clear that Justin hadn't been doing well these past years. His suit was ill-fitting, with his ankles exposed. The rebellious look on his face had been replaced by a greasy slickness, his stomach slightly bulging, and overall, he had let himself go. Who knows how he managed to sneak in here? I glanced at the scar on the side of Justin's face. After I left the country, some of my friends, angry on my behalf, tracked Justin down and ambushed him. Justin was nearly beaten to death that time, left clinging to life. My friends were all from wealthy and influential families, so Justin never found out who was behind the attack and could only chalk it up to bad luck. He later got into trouble again and was expelled, and with no education and no job prospects. Every job he did find was sabotaged by my friends back home. In the end, he had no choice but to turn to robbery, for which he was sentenced to 7 years in prison. I made sure he was well taken care of in there, and his suffering could be said to have been 100 times worse than mine. It was then that I suddenly realized something. He was really nothing. I figured Justin must have hit rock bottom, and now, seeing Grace again, he was desperate to climb back up. Grace said nothing. I know you're angry at me, Justin said, his eyes red. But I was scared too. I didn't mean to do it. His hand slowly moved up, caressing her. I know you haven't forgotten me either, Grace. Do you remember how much you liked me back then? You even gave up Benjamin for me. Grace suddenly shoved him away, her eyes blazing with anger. Don't you dare mention him again. Her voice was icy, and she mercilessly added, the thing I regret most in my life is saving you back then. She looked Justin up and down, her expression turning to contempt when she saw his suit. The foolish infatuation of youth had completely shattered after 10 years, revealing the harsh reality. The current Justin probably wasn't even qualified to stand before Grace anymore. Grace now owned 18 companies and was a bona fide heiress. A single piece of her clothing was worth more than Justin could earn in a year, and the once glorious Justin was now an unemployed ex-convict. They were truly from two different worlds now. Justin, don't ever show up in front of me again. Justin was startled by her glare, his mouth hanging open but unable to speak. Grace walked away without a second glance. I turned away and lit a cigarette. What a twisted fate. Seaside City isn't that big, but it still has a population of 8 million. When I came back, I never thought I'd run into anyone I used to know. But here they were, one after another, showing up on my doorstep. I never expected Grace to have no lingering feelings for Justin. Grace is someone who seems indifferent to everything, but in reality, she's very obsessive. Since she was a child, when she liked something, she had to have it. And she wasn't one to get bored easily. To be honest, I thought Grace liked him so much back then that they would always be together. But it turns out they had a messy breakup too. I returned to the banquet, thinking Justin would have left, but to my surprise, he was still there, and he spotted me. He walked over with a glass of wine, as if he had completely forgotten what Grace had just said, and as if he had forgotten everything that happened all those years ago. He approached with a sly grin. What a coincidence. Benjamin, it's been a long time. How have you been all these years? I stared at him for a moment, said nothing, and turned to leave. If I could understand why Grace chose Justin back then, what I could never forgive was how Justin shut that door, trapping me in hell. I still don't know why he did it. Was it a deliberate act of revenge because he thought Grace and I were close? Or was it a panicked reaction to buy time? And I don't care to know. All I know is that I despise the man standing before me, especially when he shows up acting like nothing happened. I could kill him on the spot. I took a deep breath. There were too many people around. I couldn't lose my composure in public. But Justin wasn't done. He grabbed my arm. We were old classmates. Benjamin, why the attitude? Have you forgotten how you chased after Grace back then? He sneered, wrapping his arm around my neck. You followed her around like a dog, but she only liked me. He kept rambling on, trying to take out his frustrations from Grace on me. I set my drink down on the waiter's tray and loosened my tie. Pow. My punch sent Justin's head snapping to the side, and the rest of his words got stuck in his throat. I withdrew my fist, aching from the force, and my gaze turned cold. Inch by inch. You dare hit me. A flash of venom crossed Justin's eyes as he clutched his face and started yelling, "Benjamin, you son of a bitch, how dare you hit me? Who the hell do you think you are? Somebody, call the police. Someone's assaulting me." Clearly, this was his first time in a place like this. The people around us watched the scene with amused expressions, as if watching a clown perform. Justin's voice gradually lowered as he realized no one was taking him seriously. I casually took the handkerchief my assistant handed me, wiped my hands, and tossed it aside. Grace, seeing the commotion, rushed over in concern. "Benjamin, are you okay?" She looked me over from head to toe, and once she confirmed I was fine, she turned on Justin with disgust. "Why are you still here embarrassing yourself? Didn't I tell you to get lost?" Justin, gritting his teeth, tried to say something, but I looked down at him coldly. "Security, get this man out of here." Justin was dragged away by two burly security guards. His frantic shouts for Grace ignored as she didn't even glance his way. I pulled away from Grace in frustration and left the banquet hall. The autumn wind carried a chill, and I realized belatedly that I was cold. Laura ran out after me, handing me the coat she had prepared. "Who was that idiot just now? I asked you before, what's the deal with this Lou woman? What did she do to you?" I clutched the coat, soaking in the lingering warmth. Since the incident, I hadn't told anyone about what happened. I didn't want to talk about it, but now, for some reason, maybe because the autumn night was too cold, or maybe because the person beside me was too warm, after a long silence, I finally spoke. Chapter 9. Laura stayed silent for a long time. I tugged at the corners of my mouth, offering a slight, bitter smile. A tragedy that happens to someone else often carries a hint of absurdity, and it's normal for her to feel some disdain. But then she slowly hugged me, shielding me from the night, leaving only her warmth. I whispered, "Isn't it kind of pathetic?" Laura replied softly, "A little, but not you. It's them." I couldn't help but curl my lips into a smile. I didn't expect her to say anything sentimental. Laura's not that type. In the office, when the young guys secretly admire her, she thinks they're having an eye spasm and even asks if they've been staring at the computer for too long, making their eyes dry. But suddenly, the cracks in my heart didn't seem so unbearable anymore. I suddenly asked, "Laura, do you have feelings for me? I'm not an idiot, and I don't like playing games where you pretend to be distant just to attract someone. Laura is really good to me. She's a great person, and pretending not to notice any longer would be disingenuous." Laura's face turned visibly red under the night sky, and soon even her neck was flushed. She widened her eyes, and her beautiful pupils reflected my smile. I thought she would deny it, but to my surprise, she just stared at me. "You're only realizing that now?" I was speechless, avoiding her gaze. "I don't want to lead you on. I'm really not ready for a relationship right now. I once liked someone, but after such a painful end to that unrequited love, I'm really scared. Over the years, it's not like there haven't been girls who showed interest in me, some of them even very good. I tried to force myself to give it a shot, but every time, at the last moment, I couldn't bear to go through with it. For so many years, Laura has been the only one whose presence I could tolerate, but that's all it was. I'm really scared." Laura seemed a bit disappointed, but she still smiled, bright and untroubled. "I understand, and I can wait, Benjamin, as long as you don't push me away. I won't ask for more." I was taken aback. Laura has everything going for her. She doesn't lose to Grace in terms of family background or looks, and though she's a bit rough around the edges, there are plenty of men who'd line up around the block for her. A strange emotion welled up in my heart, a tightness in my chest. Just then, Grace showed up. As soon as she saw me, she hurriedly tried to explain. "Benjamin, I really didn't know he would come today. She didn't get to finish. Laura's slap landed squarely on her face. She wasn't bluffing when she said she'd hit Grace, she really did it. I don't know how strong Laura is, but she didn't hold back at all. Grace staggered, almost falling, and blood trickled from the corner of her mouth. Laura's eyes were dark with contempt as she spat. "And you still have the nerve to come looking for him?" Grace's expression turned cold as she wiped the blood from her mouth. "This is between Benjamin and me. It's none of your business." Laura casually rolled up the sleeves of her $40,000 Chanel coat. "You're harassing my boyfriend, and you think it's none of my business? Get lost, and if you come looking for Benjamin again, I'll hit you every time I see you." I was stunned for a moment, then quickly caught on and didn't refute Laura's words. Grace froze, then looked at me in disbelief. "Boyfriend? Benjamin, are you with her?" "Yes." Laura hooked her arm around mine and said mockingly, "MS, Lou. In terms of family background and looks, I don't lose to you. As for age," she gave Grace a once-over, "I'm much younger than you. Auntie, you should know your place. If Benjamin doesn't choose me, do you really think he'd choose an old woman like you?" Grace's face turned ashen. I spoke calmly. "Grace, I don't care for your apology, and I don't need your compensation. You should go." The color drained from Grace's face. Her throat tightened as she choked back tears, ignoring Laura's presence as she stepped forward, her eyes red. Benjamin, I really regret it. I beg you. You don't know what I've been through all these years. Please don't do this. Give me a chance. I'll do anything you want. I've finally found you after all these years. I've been looking for you for 10 years. Laura's eyes widened. Hey, you want to get hit again, don't you? I stopped her and looked at Grace seriously. I don't blame you for what happened back then, and you don't need to make it up to me. But Grace, I really don't want to see you again. If you really feel you owe me something, then please don't ever show up in front of me again. Grace staggered, her face clouded with deep despair. Then she let out a bitter laugh. Fine, if that's what you want, then I'll respect your wish. Chapter 10. I never expected that would be the last time I saw Grace. The next time I heard about her was on the local news. Men kills out of love turned hate. Heiress dies on the spot. Justin, still obsessed with Grace, continued to pester her relentlessly. Grace, who only felt disgust and hatred for him, finally had enough and had someone give Justin a beating. Justin, already having nothing, was pushed to the brink of desperation by Grace. Consumed with hatred, he ambushed her one day as she was entering her company, stabbing her 7 or 8 times, each strike aimed to kill. By the time the ambulance arrived, Grace had no pulse. Justin, covered in blood, stood in the street, laughing hysterically. Grace, who did you think you were, acting all high and mighty? You were the one pretending all along. You deserved this. He murdered her in broad daylight, in front of many witnesses, with plenty of surveillance footage capturing the event. There was no question about his guilt. The court quickly sentenced him to death, with immediate execution. My company was expanding overseas, and I planned to leave the country with Laura. Before leaving, I visited Grace's grave. The tombstone bore a picture of her from when she was 17. Her eyes were clear, with a slight smile. With my hands in my pockets, I stood before her grave, and suddenly, I saw the image of that young girl, her black hair blowing in the wind. She had a pair of incredibly beautiful, almond-shaped eyes, and the way she looked at me carried a barely noticeable gentleness. I asked her, Grace, why didn't you agree when the teacher suggested you skip a grade? She scoffed and turned her head away. If I go, what will you, the idiot, do? You might not even get into college and end up screwing screws somewhere. I pouted angrily. I'm not that dumb. You're talking nonsense. She looked at me, a hint of a smile in her eyes, and reached out to ruffle my spiky hair. I closed my eyes. That was such a distant memory, one I hadn't thought about in a long time. After she turned 17, Grace had changed so much, becoming someone unrecognizable, someone I didn't dare to think about. But now that she's gone, I suddenly remember what she was like when she was young. I turned away. The 17-year-old girl rested her chin on her hand, looking at the boy across from her. Idiot. Even after all these explanations, you still don't get it. What will you do without me? Those faces gradually blurred, leaving behind nothing but emptiness. The absurdity of youth, after so many years, had finally come to an end. Perhaps we should have said goodbye long ago, but this farewell came so late. Grace, if there is another life, I hope we never meet again. Grace's perspective. I once thought Justin was the light of my life. For the first 17 years of my life, everything was planned, meticulous, and orderly. It seemed that every stage of my life was mapped out, what I should do, what I shouldn't do, with no room for mistakes. I never imagined that a person could live like Justin. I had never met a boy like him. He wasn't good at studying, had a terrible reputation, but he seemed so free. He didn't care about what anyone thought. So when he cornered me, telling me he liked me, and I saw that light of freedom in his eyes, I couldn't help but nod. The time I spent with Justin was joyful. I had never experienced anything like it in my previous life. I didn't have to care about what my parents or teachers thought, didn't have to worry about grades. I just did whatever I wanted. I became obsessed with those days and grew to loathe the monotony of my past even more. Benjamin represented that monotony. So when he came to me, saying he wanted to go to Peking University together, all I felt was disgust. I thought I loved Justin, so when we were in that warehouse, I didn't hesitate to leave with him. And then came the fire. It was as if that fire burned away the fog in my mind. When I saw Justin again, I finally realized something, belatedly. Too late. I didn't love him. I just hated my monotonous life and fell in love with what he represented, so-called freedom. When I found out what happened to Benjamin, I was devastated. I crouched on the ground, tearing at my hair, crying my heart out. I didn't know how he survived. I didn't know what I was afraid of. I just knew I couldn't bear to think about the look of despair in his eyes when I grabbed Justin's hand. In that moment, I knew something important had been lost forever. In the 10 years that followed, I never saw Benjamin again. The CU family completely cut ties with my family. I searched for many people, but it seemed that Benjamin had made up his mind to sever all connections with the past. I could never find him again. I went to the United States, the United Kingdom, Lived in Australia for 3 months, traveled all over the Netherlands, and spent the coldest winter in Canada. Many times I fantasized about opening my eyes and seeing that boy with the scarf, smiling at me with warmth in his eyes. I started having recurring dreams. In the first part of the dream, everything was always beautiful. He was lying on the carpet in my room, frowning as he complained, "Grace, this problem is so hard. Can you explain it to me again?" But as I walked over, the scene would change. Flames would engulf the abandoned warehouse, and he would lie there, covered in blood, weeping tears of blood as he looked at me. He never said a word, but just one look from him was enough to wake me up in the middle of the night, unable to sleep again. I thought that as time passed, I would gradually forget him, but his face only became clearer in my mind. I knew then that Benjamin had become an obsession. It was only after losing him that I realized how much I loved him. Justin was never my light. My light had been by my side all along. He had accompanied me for many years. When I saw Benjamin again, it was 10 years later. For a moment, I thought I was seeing things. My heart skipped a beat. By the time I went looking for him, he was gone. I don't remember how I got home that day. I just know I was in a daze, my heart swelling with pain, a sharp, piercing pain. But soon, I saw him again. Benjamin had changed a lot, yet somehow, nothing had changed at all, except that the way he looked at me was completely different. There was no warmth left. In that moment, my heart filled with bitterness, like a traveler who had wandered alone for years finally seeing home. I thought that no matter how much he resented me, I would accept it. I wanted to make it up to him. I didn't dare to hope for much, but secretly, I wished he could look at me like he used to. But it seemed he didn't need me anymore. He had someone else by his side. The way he looked at me held no affection, only disgust, as if he was looking at something filthy that he couldn't wait to avoid. I can't describe how that felt. It was as if a knife had plunged straight from his gaze into my heart, bloody, cold, and so painful that I could barely stand. I almost tortured myself by feeling that pain. I deserved it. I brought this upon myself. I never expected Justin to show up again, reopening Benjamin's wounds, ignoring my warnings, and clinging to me once more. Years ago, I ended things with Justin with a slap. I thought we were completely over, but seeing him again, I realized that the hatred in my heart had resurfaced, and I even wished he would die. I know I was the one who hurt Benjamin, but if it hadn't been for Justin, maybe things wouldn't have ended up this way. I had someone take revenge on him. I never thought he would be driven to madness, stabbing me in the street. As I felt my life slipping away, I suddenly felt at peace. This was what we owed Benjamin. Justin and I, we both deserved to go to hell. The judgment that had been waiting for years had finally been delivered, and I found that I felt relieved. I looked at the sky, a clear blue without a trace of a cloud, just like 10 years ago, and suddenly, I saw that boy in the white shirt again. He asked me, "Grace, I heard the teacher talk to you today. Why didn't you agree to skip a grade?" I reached out on tiptoe, and his hair felt a little stiff, carrying the scent of sunshine. After a long while, I smiled. "Idiot, if I left, what would you do?" Emma often breaks up with me, taking advantage of my affection for her. Every time, I try my best to persuade her to stay. The last time she broke up with me, I looked at her for a long time, then said okay. 5 years have passed, and she has finally exhausted my love for her. Chapter 1. Emma broke up with me that day over a small matter. Her childhood friend Ethan was celebrating his birthday and had just returned from studying in the United States. So Emma and her group of friends arranged to gather and celebrate Ethan's birthday and welcome him back. But that day, Emma forgot to tell me about it. I had already prepared a meal before she went out, making her favorite soup that took hours to cook. I asked her to drink some soup before leaving. While she was changing her shoes in the hallway, she casually brushed me off. "There's no time. I'm leaving now." As she finished putting on her shoes and was about to leave, I called out to her. She turned around, the black marble wall behind her making her look fair and sweet. Though her expression was somewhat impatient, I carried the soup over and held her wrist, saying, "You woke up late and your stomach is empty. You will be drinking later, so have some soup first to pad your stomach." She clicked her tongue impatiently and said, "Can you stop micromanaging me? It's really annoying." With that, she waved her hand. I knew she probably didn't mean to, but I was already running a fever and felt weak. So when she waved her hand, the bowl of soup I was holding fell to the marble floor, splattering soup and shards everywhere. There was a moment of silence in the air. I paused, my gaze shifting from the mess on the floor to her face. I tried to remain calm, even smiled slightly, and asked her, "Are you this impatient and eager today because Ethan is back?" I heard he's single again. Before I was with Emma, she had openly and secretly pursued Ethan for a long time. Later, when Ethan got a girlfriend, she accepted me out of heartbreak, and we've been together since. It's been 5 years now. This remark hit her sore spot. Over the years, Ethan remained the most special person in her heart, and even mentioning his name felt like blasphemy to her. Sure enough, she snapped instantly. her sweet face showing impatience, her brows furrowed tightly, and she was a bit angry. "Justin, what do you mean? Are you doubting me? Can you stop being so paranoid over the slightest thing? It's really annoying. If you have a problem, then let's break up." She often mentioned breaking up with me. It had become her catchphrase. To her, breaking up wasn't an event, just a synonym for expressing her annoyance. Every time she said she wanted to break up, I would persuade her to stay. But this time, after she finished speaking, I looked at her seriously for a long time, then lightly laughed and said, "All right, Emma." Her expression showed slight surprise, but she ignored me and turned to leave, because she was in a hurry. She couldn't be late for Ethan's birthday party. Chapter 2. It didn't take much time to pack up my things. Emma actually didn't like me invading her space, so I had very few belongings at her place. After cleaning up the mess in the living room, I looked at the remaining soup and put it in the fridge. This was probably the last time I would make soup for Emma. Once everything was tidy, I opened WeChat, intending to say a proper goodbye to Emma since we had been together for 5 years. But a mutual friend shared a video in our group chat. It was taken in a karaoke room, with colorful neon lights creating a lively atmosphere. Emma was singing "Today You Will Marry Me" with a guy I hadn't seen in a long time but knew well. It was Ethan. After getting together with Emma, I heard her friends casually complain that this song was a must-sing for Emma and Ethan whenever they went to karaoke. It wasn't that the song held any special meaning. It was just that Ethan had always followed Emma around as a child, telling her that he would marry her when they grew up. So the song became a running joke among their friends. I finished watching the video and decided not to send the message on WeChat. I figured Emma didn't need my farewell. I pulled my suitcase and took one last look at the empty, clean living room before leaving. The mess that caused our argument had been cleaned up by me, as if it had never existed. I sighed, starting to feel grateful for Ethan's return. The few hours Emma spent out celebrating his return and birthday gave me the quiet time I needed to clear my things out of her home. I thought I would feel a bit sad, considering we had been together for 5 years, but when I got home, I was so tired that I fell asleep peacefully. Emma called me at 2 in the morning. She must have drunk quite a bit, as her voice was slightly louder than usual when she drank. She asked, "Justin, why didn't you come to pick me up?" I was groggy from sleep and replied casually, "I'm sleeping. Let's talk tomorrow." As soon as I finished speaking, she hung up the phone. I was a light sleeper, so her call woke me up completely. I wondered why she called me. After reuniting with her childhood friend tonight, she should have been the gracious host and seen Ethan home safely. I didn't expect her to call and ask why I hadn't come to pick her up, but on second thought, it was probably another bet with her friends. Chapter 3. When I first started dating Emma, she went to a bar with some friends. It was raining that day, and I didn't want to intrude on her time with her friends, so I waited for her in a bookstore across from the bar, because I was worried about her getting home safely after drinking. I saw her as soon as she came out. I walked up to her with an umbrella and smiled, saying, "Emma, let's go home." I always felt that "we" and "home" were two very warm words. Her friends teased her, saying, "Emma, how did you trick someone as devoted and gentle as Justin into being your boyfriend?" There was no trickery. I was the one chasing after her, but despite how others envied her, she was quite annoyed at the time. Maybe I was too good to her, so much so that it lacked any challenge or excitement. People are inherently perverse. She asked me back then, "Justin, don't you have a life of your own?" I was very busy with work at that time. I had just been invited to hold my own art exhibition. Besides creating art, I spent almost all my time and energy on her. I remember smiling at her and saying, "You are my life too." I thought that was my silent confession to her over the years. Looking back, it must have been annoying for her. Once, while waiting for her outside a bar, drawing and waiting to go home together, she came out and wasn't surprised to see me. She smiled, and her friends each handed her 100 yuan, saying, "You won the bet again." Emma had bet with them that I would definitely come to pick her up. She probably lost the bet this time, which is why she angrily called me. I got out of bed to get a glass of water, and just as I finished drinking it, Emma called me again. There were several missed calls. When I answered, I was a bit surprised and asked, "What's up?" She paused, and her voice was emotionless. She asked, "Justin, I'm back. Where are your things?" She noticed I had cleared my belongings from her home. I thought it would take her a while to notice. I patiently and softly reminded her, "Emma, you forgot. We broke up 7 hours ago. You said it yourself." And I agreed. She was silent on the other end. Just when I thought the call had dropped, she suddenly said angrily, "Fine, but don't come begging me to get back together." Chapter 4. Emma doesn't understand that I will not get back together with her. It's strange. In the 5 years we were together, I never once felt disappointed or tired of the relationship, nor did I ever think of leaving. But now that I've left with the tide, I don't feel sad either. My brother said my love for Emma was like the money in her bank account. He was sitting on the sofa with his legs crossed, eating chips, looking like a sage. He said, "Justin, Your love for Emma is like the money in her bank account. She kept overdrawing it without depositing anything. So now the account is in deficit. An interesting metaphor. I think my love for Emma is indeed in a state of deficit. My brother asked me what I would do next. I shrugged and said, work. I had already arranged the venue and funding for my personal themed art exhibition. I would need to spend about a year traveling to various countries, capturing the most beautiful scenes with my brush. The first stop was the Wine River in Spain. This river, sourced from areas rich in pyrite and copper, presents a color similar to red wine. I wanted to see if I could use the river water as paint for my artwork. Just thinking about it excited me. Before I left, my brother said, seeing you like this, I'm relieved. I was worried you would be sad seeing Emma's posts on Moments. I had seen them. Emma wasn't someone who liked posting on Moments. In the 5 years we were together, she had only posted a few updates, but these past few days, her Moments were as busy as the new year. There were photos of her and Ethan visiting various scenic spots in City A, and of them enjoying different cuisines. I could understand her joy at Ethan's return, but the frequency of her posts made me wonder if she was doing it intentionally to make me jealous. However, I quickly dismissed this thought. I swiped up on the phone screen and smiled. My brother admired me and said, as expected of you, you've taken devotion and ruthlessness to the extreme. Devotion is my greatest respect for a relationship, and ruthlessness is my respect for myself. In the taxi back, I saw another of Emma's Moments. She had taken Ethan to the zoo and posted a selfie with an alpaca. I exited Moments and decided to change my profile picture. My profile picture was one taken by Emma on our 1-year anniversary. We went on a trip, and while I was eating the ice cream she had gotten tired of, I accidentally walked into her shot of the scenery. Emma had frowned at the photo, intending to delete it, but I loved it, so I used it as my profile picture for 5 years. I changed the picture to one of my newly adopted cat. Chapter 5. I received Emma's message before I boarded the plane. It was 14 days after our breakup, and she sent me a question mark, followed by, you changed your profile picture, a brief statement. Although I couldn't see her expression, I could imagine her frowning at her phone, looking displeased. I thought for a moment, then turned off my phone without replying. I boarded the plane to Spain. I had a wonderful month at the Wine River in Spain. I turned off my phone, leaving social media and other distractions behind, and focused entirely on my creations. I met an interesting person named Ava. When we first met, I was wading in the river collecting mud, my material for painting. She suddenly grabbed me from behind, wrapping her arms around my waist. I thought I was being attacked. Despite a moment of panic, I quickly smeared the mud in my hands on her face. Her face was covered in red mud. Her eyes couldn't open, but she held me tightly and said in English, it will all be over soon. You have a long lifetime. She thought I was trying to kill myself in the river. I stopped struggling. My nerves relaxed, and I found it funny. I patted her hands on my waist and told her I was just collecting mud. That's how we met. Not knowing each other at first, because I had smeared so much mud on her face, she couldn't see. I guided her to the nearest clean water source to wash her face. Her face was bright and cheerful once cleaned, and she turned out to be a fellow countryman. Meeting a fellow traveler in a foreign land is always delightful. After everything was sorted, I felt a bit guilty and apologized to her. She was quite relaxed and didn't get angry. Her smile was bright and carefree, a very sunny girl. She gave me a thumbs up, praising my alertness and quick reactions. She said she was on her way to a beach vacation in southern Spain. Passing through Huelva province on the A461 road, she saw me in the river and thought I was trying to kill myself, so she rushed over to save me, almost going blind in the process. After hearing about my creative concept, she was very interested. She was a curious person, and she decided to change her plans and stay to see if I could create paint using the water and mud from the Wine River to capture the local beauty. I readily accepted her request. She was a very decent and respectful person, maintaining a good distance socially, so interacting with her was very comfortable. For example, she never disturbed me when I was focused on my work. Sometimes, when I worked day and night without rest, she would have the waiter bring food to my door, knocking lightly 3 times without further interruption. Chapter 6. When I emerged from my room, more than half a month had passed. The innkeeper's son was flirting with Ava, and it seemed the locals all liked her. She gracefully declined, then looked over at me, giving me a once-over before smiling slightly and saying, when your artwork is exhibited, no one will believe what the artist went through to create it. I laughed too. I was covered in paint and mud, looking as if I had just been dug up from the ground, but I had just finished my proudest work, so I didn't mind Ava's teasing. I looked up at her, smiling with excitement, and said, weren't you curious? The time has come to satisfy your curiosity. She looked at me, slightly stunned for some reason. Then I took her to my studio. A 2-meter-long painting perfectly replicated the scenery along the Wine River. Her eyes showed amazement and surprise as she entered, which greatly pleased me. She admired it for a while, then turned to me and said seriously, it is my honor to be the first to see this painting. After that, I treated her to a meal to thank her for her considerate care over the past few days. 3 days later, we parted ways. We were both spontaneous people and didn't even exchange contact information. To us, the other was just someone who added a bit of interest to this journey. She continued her travel plans after satisfying her curiosity, while I prepared to stay a few more days before returning home. Unexpectedly, we met on the flight back home. In first class, when I saw her, I thought I had mistaken someone else for her, because she had said she would stay for another half-month. Ava also looked surprised to see me and then shrugged helplessly, saying, "There was a rebellion at the company. I have to go back to take charge." I couldn't help but smile. We landed in Beijing at 2 in the morning. Ava's driver was waiting outside the airport. She asked me enthusiastically, "If you don't mind, I can give you a ride home first." I didn't drive, so I thought about it and accepted. Thanking her, the car stopped outside my apartment building, and I got out and thanked Ava because I had a lot of luggage. She graciously got out and asked if I needed help. I smiled and said, "I can't let a lady carry my things." She smiled at that. Suddenly, someone called my name from the shadows near the flower bed. "Justin." Chapter 7. It was Emma. Her tone gave nothing away. I turned around and saw her stepping out of the shadows into the light. She had lost a lot of weight over the past month. She glanced at Ava, then back at me, and sneered. "So the reason you broke up with me was that you cheated." I tried to stay calm, first thanking and saying goodbye to Ava. Although she was just a passing acquaintance, I was very grateful for her care. She considerately asked if I needed help when she saw Emma, but I shook my head, and she left gracefully, giving me space to handle the situation alone. Emma's gaze was fierce, almost menacing, like an abandoned stray cat trying to hide its panic with a show of aggression. She asked, "Did you break up with me because you fell for someone else?" I felt a strange weariness. Over the years, I had always catered to her emotions. She was always polite and distant with others but always took a high and mighty stance with me. I was really tired of it, but I tried to keep my emotions in check and explained patiently, "Emma, you were the one who broke up with me. Ava and I are just strangers who met by chance in Spain. You can't keep doing this." I paused, struggling to find the right words. My tone probably surprised Emma. She looked stunned, a flash of hurt crossing her eyes. After a long pause, she spoke softly. This was probably the first time in our 5 years together that she showed weakness. She said, "I heard from your friend that you were coming back tonight. I've been waiting since 6 in the afternoon. Justin, you didn't reply to my WeChat messages." She paused and asked, "In the month we've been apart, did you ever think about me?" I didn't expect her to ask such a question and was momentarily stunned, but when I thought back over the past month, all I felt was satisfaction with my work. Not once, not even once, did I think about Emma. I could only remain silent. She stared at me under the streetlight, trying to read my heart from my expression. After a long moment, she suddenly smiled self-deprecatingly and said, "I don't believe you." Chapter 8. Emma has a confidence that I don't believe her. I liked her for a very long time, so long that I can no longer remember what initially attracted me to her. It feels like my feelings for her have faded over the years, and the subsequent accommodation and care were just inertia from the residual warmth of loving her for so many years. I knew she always liked her childhood friend Ethan. She gave up the night Ethan went abroad with a teacher from their school. I don't know if young love is always so brave and fearless. That night, she chased after him to the airport alone, then watched Ethan hold the teacher's hand as they laughed and walked through the boarding gate. She sat at the airport until nightfall, the brilliant neon lights illuminating her sadness. After a long time, she stood up and walked out of the airport. I had been following her all along because I was worried about her. She vented all her anger and sadness on me, asking, "Are you following me to see the joke? Get lost." I stood about 50 meters behind her and quietly said, "I'm just worried about you." That night, she walked back to the dormitory from the airport, a journey of over 10 kilometers that took her the whole night. It was probably her most miserable night, and I silently followed her, walking with her all night. In the morning, she reached the dormitory and, for some reason, turned around and asked me, "Do you really like me? Then let's be together." I was stunned for a moment, then I laughed. We've been together since that day, 4 or 5 years now. My friends used to call me a simp, but I'm just someone who follows my heart. Life is short, and I want to do what I want. When Emma asked me if I wanted to be together, I asked myself 4 questions during those few seconds of hesitation. Do you know Emma likes someone else? Yes. Do you know Emma doesn't like you? Yes. Will you regret it if you reject Emma? Yes. Do you want to be with her? Yes. The answers were so simple. It's like they say, a forced melon isn't sweet, but how would you know unless you try? I calmly and rationally knew what I was doing. I was like this when I got together with her 5 years ago, and I'm still like this as we break up 5 years later. I got what I wanted. Compared to those who have never been with the person they like, I don't know if I'm lucky or unlucky, but at least I can let go when it's time. I have let go of Emma. Chapter 9. Emma still stood in front of me, her small figure almost entirely covered by the streetlight's shadow. She looked up at me, as if trying to find some trace of feigned sorrow on my face. I don't know why, but I suddenly asked, "Emma, do you remember the first time you broke up with me?" She was probably surprised by my question and froze for a moment. The first time she broke up with me was about 3 months into our relationship. She did it over WeChat, and then she forgot about it and went to Tibet with her friends for 7 days. When she came back, I was waiting for her outside her dormitory. It was raining that day, and I was soaked and feverish. When she saw me, she was startled and asked, "What are you doing here?" I was quite sad at that moment but still smiled at her. She probably softened because her heart had already given up on Ethan, so it didn't matter who she was with, and we got back together. I asked her, "Emma, when we broke up and you went to Tibet, did you ever think of me, even for a moment?" I sighed and said, "I felt the same way as you did back then." Her expression darkened with my words. She stepped back a few paces, then turned and left. In her eyes, coming to find me tonight was already a great concession, giving me face and respect. The fact that I didn't reciprocate probably felt like a slap in the face to her. She had every right to be angry. When my friend found out that Emma had come to see me, he was surprised and asked, "Could it be that Miss Tin realized after losing you that she actually likes you deeply?" I just smiled without saying anything. Rather than saying she liked me, it was more likely that her possessiveness was at play. The humble boyfriend who had always revolved around her, after the breakup, neatly cleaned up everything and disappeared completely from her world. No WeChat messages, no attempts at reconciliation, no usual caring gestures. It's like a pet dog that always wagged its tail and followed you around suddenly stopped responding to you one day. You would naturally be curious and wave a bone in front of it to test its reaction. To Emma, I was that pet dog. She came to test me because my post-breakup behavior surprised her. So she waved a bone in front of me to see if I was still within her control. If I showed even a hint of longing or affection, I believed she would quickly lose interest and walk away. My friend said I was overthinking it, and I stayed silent. Chapter 10. Emma began to appear in my world frequently. It's quite funny. After we broke up, she sought me out more often than she did in the last year we were together. At first, it was because she found a stuffed bear I had left behind. This was the first birthday gift Emma gave me because I had a habit of hugging her while sleeping. It was an unconscious behavior, so she gave me this bear to hug at night. She called and asked, "Do you want to come and get it, or should I bring it to you?" I paused and said, "No, just throw it away." Emma was silent for a long time. Just before she hung up, I added, "If you find anything else of mine, feel free to dispose of it. No need to contact me." She didn't respond. That night, Emma called again. I didn't answer the first time, but the phone kept ringing persistently. I sighed and picked up. She was drunk. I was slightly surprised because she always knew her limits and never got drunk. She slurred, "You left something at my place." I patiently said, "I don't want it. Please throw it away." Also, I paused. "Emma, don't call me late at night anymore." "I won't answer." She ignored me and continued, "The necklace, the one designed by Cesar, that you like. I bought it, and you forgot to take it." This was the anniversary gift I had mentioned to Emma for our 5th anniversary. 2 weeks before the anniversary, she asked what I wanted. This was surprising because in all the years we were together, I was the one always giving her gifts. I told her I liked a necklace designed by Cesar. It was meaningful because the designer created it inspired by his 5-year relationship with his boyfriend. It held a lot of sentimental value. Emma nodded and said okay. But on our 5th anniversary, she forgot not only the necklace but our anniversary itself. 3 days later, Ethan returned from the US, and she was eager to celebrate his birthday, preparing a birthday gift and a welcome home party for him. Then we broke up. See, the reason I don't love her anymore is just the accumulation of all these moments. My voice turned cold as I said, "It's too late, Emma." There was a commotion on her end, and someone took the phone, apologizing to me. "Justin, I'm sorry. Emma is drunk." After a moment of hesitation, she asked, "She seems really upset. Is there no chance for you two to get back together?" I hung up the phone. After hanging up, I stared at the ceiling, feeling that saying I was completely unaffected would be a lie. After all, I truly loved her once. I just sighed at how extreme her change in attitude was. I couldn't reconcile the previously cold Emma with the current one. Her newfound gentleness and thoughtfulness always seemed out of place to me. Chapter 11. After that phone call incident, Emma disappeared for a long time. The next time I saw her was 3 months later. We broke up in early summer, and in the blink of an eye, it was late autumn. The weather was turning cold, and she was wearing a long black coat. Although we had broken up, I had to admit that she was still stunningly beautiful. She was leaning against the gate of my apartment complex, smoking. The period when Ethan and his teacher first went abroad for further studies was when she smoked the most. Combined with drinking and staying up late, she ended up in the hospital. After being discharged, she subconsciously controlled it. I didn't know why she started smoking again. She heard my footsteps and looked up at me. She looked a bit tired and said, "Sorry, I know I'm disturbing you, but my mom is coming to City A this weekend, and I haven't told her about our breakup yet. Strangely, although Emma didn't like me when we were together, her mother was very fond of me. Maybe it was my calm and steady demeanor, different from the spoiled brats in Emma's social circle. Her mother had a heart condition. I hesitated, and Emma's expression showed a bit of pleading. Just for 2 days. I'll explain everything to her slowly afterward. I sighed and nodded. Seeing me nod, she breathed a sigh of relief and took a step back, surprisingly polite, saying, "Thank you." Before leaving, she handed me a bag. "It's getting cold, and you need to take care of your throat." This was an old issue of mine. My throat often got inflamed during the transition from autumn to winter. Every year, Emma would have a friend buy me a particular health supplement from Australia, and as long as I took it in advance, it would prevent the problem. I was surprised she still remembered. I held the bag and watched her leave, feeling a mix of emotions. Chapter 12. Emma's mother stayed for 2 days and then left. To avoid suspicion, I moved some of my belongings to Emma's place. After her mother left, I packed up my things. Emma quietly followed me around. When I was about to carry my suitcase downstairs, she suddenly grabbed my hand. She looked down, so I couldn't see her expression. She asked, "Can't you stay?" After a pause, she looked up at me, explaining with some restraint, "There's really nothing between Ethan and me." I admit that when he came back, I felt some waves of emotion, but that was just a normal reaction to someone I once liked. I never thought about being with him. Her voice had a subtle choke. She paused and then continued, "It was my fault for breaking up with you. It won't happen again. Justin, give me another chance, please." I had never seen her like this. Feeling troubled, I turned to leave. Maybe because I was preoccupied, I missed a step and fell down the stairs. I broke my calf bone. Emma stayed with me in the hospital, helping me with the admission procedures and taking care of me. When I woke up after the surgery, she was asleep next to my bed. Hospital beds were scarce, and there were 4 patients in one room. Her body was squeezed between 2 beds, unable to stretch out, looking quite pitiful. Even in her sleep, her brows were furrowed, looking uneasy. Her other hand was still covering mine, as if she wanted to be ready to wake up if I needed anything at night. I thought for a moment and didn't pull my hand away. The anesthesia in my leg was slowly wearing off, and the increasing pain kept me awake. I lay there, recalling a time long ago. Back then, I had just graduated and entered the workforce, carrying the title of a genius graduate. An art gallery investor invited me to dinner. Being young, I didn't have much sense of caution and thought he genuinely appreciated my talent. It wasn't until he poured me a third drink and put his hand on my shoulder that I realized something was wrong. There was something in the drink, and I felt weak. Later, Emma appeared out of nowhere and smashed a bottle over the investor's head. Then she took me away. I found out later that she was supposed to go to a concert with friends that night. Emma never used this incident to seek credit or blame me for causing her to miss the concert she had been looking forward to. For some reason, I suddenly remembered her goodness. In the barren soil of our love, there had indeed been beautiful moments like these. To be honest, I was somewhat swayed. Chapter 13. Emma stayed with me in the hospital until I was discharged. I had told her she didn't need to, that my friend would come and accompany me. I wanted to cut the ties quickly, but she insisted on taking some responsibility, thinking that she was partly to blame for my fall down the stairs. My friend, hearing that Emma was there, joked that there was a chance we might get back together and decided not to come to the hospital. The elderly lady in the next bed smiled at us and asked, "Young man, your girlfriend is really considerate. Such good girls are rare nowadays." I smiled, and when I looked up, I saw Emma standing at the foot of the bed, watching me nervously. After a while, she suddenly smiled. The smile spread from her eyes to her lips, and even after we were discharged and got into her car, she looked at me and said, "I'm very happy, Justin. Just now, when that lady called me your girlfriend, you didn't deny it." I opened my mouth but didn't say anything. I just felt it was unnecessary because she had been with me for so long, and explaining to outsiders that she wasn't my girlfriend would inevitably lead to more questions. And after all, she was a young lady. I didn't want to embarrass her in front of others. Since we were about to leave the hospital, I just wanted to avoid any additional trouble, but seeing the smile on her lips, I sighed and remained silent. Emma wanted to continue our relationship. If it were the current Emma, I actually would be willing to give it a try. Could the love lost in the dust of time really come back? This thought persisted until Emma took me to her house. I had fallen in a rush that day, and my luggage was still at Emma's place. Her mother had brought me some dried fish that I liked very much, so after leaving the hospital, we went to her house to get my things, and when the door opened, I saw Ethan. He was wearing an apron, holding a spatula in one hand, looking like the men of the house, smiling kindly, and said, "Oh, Emma, you're back. You said you'd be taking Justin home from the hospital, so I thought you probably didn't have time to eat. Come on in." He waved us in, wearing the watch Emma's mother had given me, which I had left on Emma's bedside table after we broke up. My gaze shifted from the watch to Emma's face, then I stood at the door and suddenly laughed. It was a laugh of release and calm. At that moment, I knew that Emma and I would never be possible in this lifetime. Whether it was 5 years ago or 5 years later, when we stood together, the one who didn't fit in was always me. But that was okay. I didn't mind anymore. I stood politely and distantly at the door, declining. No need. I'm in a hurry to get back. I won't bother you. Then I turned to Emma. I won't go in. Please bring my things out. Thank you. She looked a bit pale, glanced at Ethan, then at me, and said before going in to get the luggage, I'll explain everything to you later. I didn't say anything. After she went inside, the smile on Ethan's face gradually disappeared. He looked at me with hostility, as if I were an intruder, and his smile turned venomous like a snake. You won't make me lose a bet, will you? I raised an eyebrow in confusion, and he smiled and explained. The day I came back to China, they said you and Emma had broken up. Emma and her friends all bet that within 3 months, you'd be crawling back. The bet was later extended to 6 months. Emma and her friends all bet you'd come back, but I bet you wouldn't. He asked me word by word, you won't make me lose, will you? I looked at him and didn't answer, just said calmly, I don't know if you'll lose your bet, but I do know Emma's friends should win theirs. When your teacher in America dumped you and you had to come back, they bet on whether you'd act like a pretentious coquette and get Emma to take you back. I laughed, seeing his pale face, and said, looks like her friends should have won. Just then, Emma came out with my luggage. I took it and smiled. Thanks. No need to see me off. My friend is coming to pick me up, so I won't bother you. Finally, I looked at Emma with a relieved smile and said, Emma, if you want me to keep a good impression of you in my memory, please don't contact me again. That was the last thing I said to her and the last time I saw her. It was also the last good thing she did for me. Chapter 14. 2 years later, I saw Ava at an art exhibition. She was standing in front of my painting of the Wine River. I walked over and stood beside her, looking at it together. After 2 years without seeing each other, we didn't engage in polite small talk. It was as if we were old friends. She turned her head and smiled at me. I saw the news about your exhibition and decided to come. Just as impressive as I imagined. She paused, then asked with a smile, after the exhibition, can I invite the artist to dinner? I smiled back and said, of course. Time flies, the seasons change, the sun sets, and the moon rises. After spring comes summer, autumn, and winter. Life is long, with many landscapes to see. You have to experience them yourself to truly understand. As for what the future holds, you'll only know by living it.